welcome to Crystals and Coffee. Thank you for joining me. It's the first proper episode in a very, very long time. So thank you if you're coming back, thank you. If you're new, thank you for listening as well. I have got quite the story for you, really, over the next couple of weeks. I've decided to make this a 2-part podcast because it's really quite long. So I think it'd be a bit much to do it all in one go. So it's basically going to be talking about big cross-country move that I did over the last 8 months or so, but which really the journey actually started 2 years ago. Now, I know a lot of my listeners are in the United States, so when I talk about a cross-country move here in England, for you guys it might just be a case of going to the next big town. A cross-country move here in England is about, well, I've moved nearly just shy of 300 miles away, which I know in the grand scheme of things, in bigger countries, that's not necessarily a long way. It's about 4.5 hour drive. But when you say to somebody in England that you're moving 300 miles away, it may as well be on the other side of the world. That is kind of the reaction we got from a lot of people when we told them that we were moving, quote unquote, so far away. So we've moved basically from the southwest of the country to the northwest of the country, literally bordering Scotland now. So you can't go any further north in England to where we've moved to, up in a city called Carlisle. So basically I want to talk about this year, 2021. It's been a massive year for me, in the sense that everything in my life has changed, basically. It's what it feels like. We sold, finally. I don't know if you were listening last year, the saga I went through trying to sell my house. It felt like it was taking forever, and it did take just over a year, and we finally sold our house, accepted an offer on the house in November 2020. But it did take quite some time to actually go through, but it was sold anyway. And then we came up here, we looked around houses, we found a house that we really, really liked. I just touched my mic then, sorry for that noise. We found a house that we really, really liked. We put an offer in, it was accepted, everything was going great. And then unfortunately, that fell through. We weren't able to continue with the purchase, we had to pull out. And at the time we were absolutely gutted. That happened in January. However, we decided, because we finally had a buyer for our house, to continue with the sale and move up here anyway and rent somewhere until we found another house. We thought, we can't go back now. We've come this far. We've finally sold the house. We have to do something. We have to move on this, or who knows how long it would take. With the housing market changing and everything, so we just went for it. So we decided to rent up here instead and take our time trying to find somewhere. So had to find somewhere to rent reasonably quickly, because I was under the impression that our buyers wanted to move quick. That's a whole nother story in itself, which I'm not going to bore you with, but in the end I was really quite stressed out with our buyers, but finally it did go through, obviously. But yeah, so basically looked online, found houses to rent, did a video viewing because of COVID and everything. We did they had a video tour on their website, did the video tour, liked the look of the house, had no idea where it was really in the city because we'd only been here once, but we went for it. We went for it on the online viewing, signed the contract. And then I drove up here one weekend one day on my own, signed the contracts, got the keys, and then drove back down the same day. And we moved up the next week. So luckily for us, the house was wonderful. It was in a great location, and it was literally a 5-minute walk from the school that we wanted to send the boys to. So it's almost serendipitous how it worked out. That's something I'm going to be talking about later on, is how when things are meant to happen, they work out the way they should, if you just trust the process. And it feels like that house falling through so we could rent that house where it was with the schools and everything was what was supposed to happen, even though it didn't feel like it at the time. So we moved up the following week. got us, just did everything that came with a move, got trying to get settled in, and then trying to then continue to negotiate the sale of our house down south, which dragged on for just shy of another 2 months. It sold in the middle of April. Thank goodness. I was so relieved when it finally went through. And then we were free to obviously then try and find our own house. However, because we'd moved up here, we moved up here jobless. We left everything behind, moved up here. My husband had to find a new job. I had to find a new job because we wanted to get a mortgage. So that's why everything went on hold with all of the crystals and coffee and everything. I had to get a job around here. Because we've moved so far away, we had to look credible for a mortgage company that we were serious about staying in the area. So we both had to find new jobs. Thankfully, we did find jobs pretty quickly. My husband is an HGV truck driver. So the industry is crying out for drivers at the moment. So thankfully, he found a job really quick. He found a job within about 3 days of us living here. And likewise, I found a job at quite a large holiday destination up where we live, holiday resort, in the housekeeping department. It was 2 days a week. It worked really well between the boys' schooling and school hours, which was great because I was quite conscious of having to be around for them quite a lot because this was a huge transition for them. I mean, they're only 10 and 11. They'd left all their friends behind. They'd left their school behind. They had to settle into a new school, make new friends, discover a new city. So I was very conscious of still having to be on hand for them, but also being employed. So this job that came up for 2 days a week was absolutely perfect. And thankfully, I got that job after the first interview. So I was really, really pleased with that. So we went to visit the boys' new school. The school was absolutely fantastic. It's this beautiful old school. One thing about Carlisle is it's steeped in history. Everything here is super old. It was a Roman occupied area. We're right by Hadrian's Wall. So there is so much Roman architecture and history around here, and there's like old forts, ruins dotted around everywhere. But obviously their school isn't that old. Their school is 125 years old. It's a Victorian school, and it's absolutely stunning. It's the original building, big steepled roofs, huge high ceilings. The rooms are massive, and it's a relatively small school compared to the school they came from as well. It's only there was only one class of about 20 children per year group, so that's absolutely brilliant. And yeah, they started school. Literally, we moved up here while we were still in lockdown due to COVID, and the school's reopening coincided with us moving up here really quite well. So the schools reopened about 2 weeks after we moved up here, so the boys were able to go back to school, and the kids here going back to school were doing their own transition because they'd been home for, when did we go into lockdown last time? November. So all the kids have been home for 4 or 5 months, so they were able to kind of ease back in with the other kids as well, which was great. And it turns out they absolutely loved their new school. They came out from the first day absolutely buzzing. They'd made friends straight away. They've now got best friends. My eldest has now gone up to another school. He started secondary school now. It's like our version of high school, which start at 11 years old here. And he's moved up there with the friends he made at his primary school. And just discovering everything with his friends for the first time, because they've all moved up together and they've all gone through this massive transition to quote unquote big school together. So that's worked out really well. And my youngest is still at the primary school, and he's got a best friend that they absolutely obsessed with each other. So it's worked out really, really well. So everyone's sort of like settled in amazingly. So for the first few months and throughout the summer, moving up here, we had to discover our new surroundings. It was all brand new to all of us. We discovered our new city, as I said, steeped in history. I actually went online and found a treasure trail of the city that you can download, and it takes you on, it's about a 2-hour walk following clues around the city to kind of we got to know a lot about the city. We saw a lot of things we weren't aware of and learned a lot about the history on our little treasure trail walk. So that was at a website called treasuretrails.com, and I know they do things worldwide. It's like it's a big website. I know that they've got treasure trails like all over the place. So if you're interested, go and check that out. If you're going away somewhere or you're going to a new city and you want to explore, it's a really good way of doing it, and it's really fun for the kids as well to follow all the clues that they put up there. So we did that to learn about the city, and obviously one of the main reasons we moved up here is to be by the Lake District. The Lake District National Park, which has 13 absolutely stunning, huge lakes in it. Beautiful mountains, fells, scenery. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's one of the reasons, if not one of the main reason we wanted to move up here, is to be near the Lake District, where we've been on holiday several times as a family. So we've explored a lot of the Lake District, we've done boat trips. Actually did something that I thought I would never ever do, and I got in a single person kayak and kayaked out to the middle of a lake. What I was doing, I couldn't believe that I'd done it. It was absolutely amazing. I would never in a million years ever thought that I would do that, because I've been terrified of open water since I was a kid. But I've managed to conquer that now, and we did some kayaking, and we've bought a paddleboard this year as well. We've been paddleboarding loads on different lakes, and the boys have mastered it as well. It's actually really sweet. A lot of the times we've done lake days during the summer, and my youngest would sit on the front and my eldest would paddle them out way further than I was comfortable with, but they had a great time. We got them some wetsuits, and they've but just I can't even explain it. It was just absolutely amazing to see them running in and out of these absolutely stunning huge lakes, but surrounded by beautiful scenery, and to think how different our life is now compared to how it was when we lived down in the southwest. It doesn't even compare. It feels like it was, even though it was this time last year, I was still living down there. It feels like a lifetime ago. It was, and it's been such an emotional, strong journey with just so many ups and downs, which I'm going to explain about some of them in this podcast and in the next part as well. First of all, though, I just want to break in and just say thank you to everyone who has been following, who's been listening this year, even though I haven't released a single new episode. And thank you to those of you who are new to it, who are listening to my story. It's really quite cathartic for me to be able to get this out and explain it, as well as maybe being interesting to you and helping you, maybe inspiring some people to make a change for themselves, or at least exploring how they might go about doing that and taking those first few steps for themselves. I basically started from scratch again because I wanted to have a fresh start along with everything else I've had. So I've set up some new socials as well. If you'd like to go and take a look at those over on Instagram and YouTube. That it's at Crystals and Coffee KB, and I share daily stories over there. I have a little chat with everyone every morning about what's going on with me and what I'm going to be up to, showing you bits and pieces of my life, as well as stuff to do with Crystals and Coffee, to do with crystals, holistic healing, a lot of oracle card readings I'm going to start doing over on my YouTube channel, weekly oracle card readings. So if you want to keep up to date with those, or just be nosy about my life, then you can go ahead and follow me at Crystals and Coffee KB on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube as well is Crystals and Coffee. So yeah, just wanted to break in and tell you about that and say thank you. And I'll link everything in the show notes and in the description so that you can find it easily as well. Okay, so we decided, after we'd settled in and started to do some exploring and everything, around June time, we decided it was time. We've been here 3 months. We've been in our new jobs 3 months, which was a minimum to be able to apply for a mortgage. We decided, right, it's time to look for a house. We don't want to stay in a rented house. We did this because we wanted to move and settle here properly. So we decided on roughly the area we wanted to live. Obviously, we couldn't move too far away from where the boys were going to school and everything like that. And the type of house we wanted. We really, really liked the house we rented was a Victorian terraced house. it had been refurbished, so there wasn't a lot of character left in the house. It kind of all been stripped out, which was a shame. But we knew that was the type of house we wanted to live in. So that's what we started to look at. And we actually ended up buying the first house we looked at. I mean, we looked at other houses, but we ended up buying the first one we looked at. It just literally walking through the door, it ticked every single box, and I absolutely loved it. And it was all very neutral inside as well, like cosmetically it's all very neutral, so I knew it was going to be really easy over the next few years to build it up and put our stamp on it. And it's in a great location, it's in a really quiet location, it's right by a park and a field, and it's not too far from the schools. I do have to drive the boys to school every day now, because we've moved that much further away, but I don't mind doing that. It's absolutely fine. Especially with the rain and the snow that we've been getting here, I would rather be ferrying them to and from anyway. So we put an offer in, it was accepted, and then it took just under 3 months, and we got the keys, and we moved in at the end of September. And it's just, I love it. I wake up every morning and I walk out of my bedroom onto my landing, and it's like, it's not a massive house. It's bigger than the house we sold, for sure. But I love it. It's like I call it my little mansion, even though it's like a tiny house in comparison to a mansion. To me, it's my mansion. It's beautiful. It's got the massive high ceilings. It's got the Victorian detailing. It's got a lot of, it's got fireplaces. The house was built in 1895. So it comes with a lot of character in this house, but also with some modern features like double glazing and central heating. So, it's warm and it's lovely and it's modernised in that sense, but there's just so much character. And we've now decorated it for Christmas. I have this obnoxiously large Christmas tree in my living room because we now have these huge high ceilings. We're like, well, we've got to get a big tree because otherwise it's going to look silly. But yeah, again, if you go over onto my Instagram, I've shared pictures of our tree and I've tied a big ribbon around our front door and put lights in the window, and it's my little, I absolutely adore it. It's everything I could have dreamed of in the last, and the journey we've been through in the last 2 years. This has made it all completely worth it. We're now where we wanted to be when we first decided to move up here back in the summer of 2019. Of course, we had no idea, like the rest of the world, what was going to hit us in 2020. So I think that kind of hindered the journey somewhat. Maybe it wouldn't have taken so long if it wasn't for that. But again, trust in the process. Everything happened and it's led us here. If it hadn't slowed us down, this house wouldn't have been available for us to buy because it had only been on the market 3 weeks when we saw it. So again, trust in the process and going with it and trying to stay strong, because believe me, there were times in the last 2 years where I was not feeling strong. It was horrendously stressful and emotional. To get to this point now, looking back on it, it was all worth it. But when you're in the midst of it, when you're in the middle of that drama, it feels like the end of the world. It doesn't, you kind of don't feel that you can carry on, and maybe it's not meant to be, or it's not worth it because of all the obstacles that keep getting thrown at you. But overall, in the end, it absolutely was. And that's a lot of what I'm going to share in part 2, because I've waffled on now for nearly 20 minutes. So I'm going to wrap up today's, and next Friday I'm going to talk a lot more about that emotional side of the journey and why it happens, or why I believe it happens, the stress that's involved, getting through it, and then maybe how to go about trying to make those changes for you if there's something that's burning inside of you that you want to make a change for, and it's just absolutely terrifying, because believe me, that this was not easy. This was a scary process. So that's what I'm going to chat about next week in part 2. So I'll wrap up today. It would be great if you want to follow me on Instagram or Facebook. Like I say, I share things daily over there. You can just use it to be nosy, or obviously you'll get heads up about everything I'm releasing. So I'll put that in the show notes. And I'll also put links to my YouTube channel if you want to go and take a look at that. I've got a video came out yesterday of my weekly oracle card readings, and I've got a video came out today. I've done an unboxing and a review of a Intuition and Oracles kit that I picked up while I was shopping in town last week. So I've done a thorough review of that. It's not affiliated in any way, it's an honest review, and it's an absolutely beautiful kit actually. So if you want to go take a look at that, that's on my YouTube channel. I'll share the link. And yeah, I will speak to you next week with part 2 of this long old journey. So thank you for listening, and I will speak to you soon. Bye.